My shadow started moving out of sync with me. Something feels off about my shadow. I'm not sure how else to put it. I'm not drinking. I'm not on any medication. And if you're wondering, I haven't slept for 3 nights straight. I'm fine. Well, I was fine. I'm 34, living alone in a quiet town up north. Life here is pretty ordinary. Shops, a church, a couple of bars, one school, and forests all around. Lots of forests. My small house, inherited from my parents, sits close to the edge of those woods. I work remotely as a web designer for small businesses. My days pass by in front of a laptop, sometimes so deeply immersed I forget to eat. It suits me well enough. Not many people around. Occasionally, a neighbor stops by with mail, or I head over to the diner next door for coffee. But mostly, I walk. It's the only thing that truly keeps me grounded. Long, solitary hikes. Headphones. Silence. Endless greenery. I know those forest trails better than the town streets. Sometimes I'm gone for a few hours. Other times, all day. Everything was quiet, peaceful, until the moment I first noticed my shadow behaving strangely. Me was the delay. It was late October, around 6 in the evening. I was walking home along the forest path, just like always. The day had been calm and windless. The sun had almost disappeared behind the trees, leaving long, jagged shadows everywhere. I walked slowly, breathing deeply. The forest always helped clear my mind, washing away the day's tension from hours at the computer. I stopped briefly to adjust my backpack and suddenly noticed my shadow on the ground, lagging behind. I was already standing still, yet it seemed as though my shadow was still catching up. For several seconds, I just stared down, trying to understand if I'd really seen it correctly. Maybe it was an illusion. Maybe the sun had momentarily slipped behind a cloud. But as I took another step forward and glanced down again, my heart skipped. The shadow was definitely delayed. Only slightly, perhaps a second, but undeniably delayed. I sharply raised my arm. The shadow copied, but with a pause, and it moved awkwardly, unlike me, as if it didn't quite know how to move. At that moment, genuine fear seized me. Not just discomfort, but the raw terror you feel in dreams when you're being chased, and your legs refuse to move. It was sharp, cold, a punch in the gut. My breath quickened. My fingers turned ice cold, and I felt the hairs on the back of my neck rise. Every instinct screamed, "Run! Right now!" I bolted forward without looking back, nearly tripping over roots on the trail. My heart thundered in my ears. I sprinted through the backyard, slammed the gate shut, and burst into the house. I locked the door as if someone might follow. The kitchen lights were on. The comforting smell of baking filled the air. Jess appeared, a mug in her hand. Seeing my face, she frowned. "Hey, are you okay? What happened?" I stumbled through the story. My shadow, the delay, the way it moved wrong. Jess listened carefully, but when I finished, a gentle concern crept into her eyes. Not fear, just confusion. "Maybe you're just overtired. The forest, the dusk, strange lighting. It can happen. Go lie down, I'll make you some tea." I nodded, agreeing outwardly, but instead, I locked myself in the pantry. Now, I sit here holding my phone. Screen brightness dimmed, the door shut tight. I'm terrified to go out, afraid that if I see my shadow again, it won't wait to mimic me anymore. The next morning, everything seemed normal. It was sunny and quiet. Jess hummed softly to herself as she poured coffee. I almost laughed at myself. Really, my shadow. Fatigue, stress, autumn woods, sunlight in my eyes. It couldn't have been real. I decided to forget about it, to let it go. But my shadow hadn't forgotten. First, I began noticing oddities in reflections, not mirrors which looked perfectly normal, but shop windows, glass doors, the microwave, even the turned-off TV screen. I saw delays, fractions of a second, barely perceptible shifts, as if my silhouette moved with microscopic hesitation. I'd turn my head and see something in the reflection jerk just a bit later. Sometimes the opposite. The reflection would move first, and I'd follow. Jess assured me it was just optical illusions, tricks of perception. I nodded, pretending to agree, but deep down, the feeling kept growing. Something was wrong, very wrong. I started testing myself. I set up a camera, recorded myself moving around the room. Reviewing the footage showed nothing unusual. Everything was normal. But once I switched off the lights and simply observed, in the dimness, my shadow lagged slightly, as if it needed to think before copying my movements. One night, after Jess had already fallen asleep, I crept into the kitchen and deliberately began making abrupt, jerky movements beneath the desk lamp. My shadow stretched across the floor. I waved my arm, and for an instant, it seemed like the shadow flinched, not after my movement, but before. I froze. A second later, the lamp flickered. I spun around sharply, and for just a moment, saw my shadow straighten itself, as if it had been standing differently from me. And when I took a step back, it didn't move. It just stood there, stretched across the floor, black, elongated, alien. I turned on the overhead lights, and instantly my shadow returned to normal. It merged with me again, but now I knew. It knew I was watching. I no longer feel safe, even in the light. The light doesn't help. It only sharpens the outline, makes it clearer, more vivid, more real. It has become denser, more defined, far too tangible. I turned on every possible source of light in the house. Lamps, night lights, string lights, even flashlights stashed in drawers. The room grew hot. My eyes ached from the strain, but darkness wasn't an option. I already knew. The shadow doesn't come because of the light. It comes despite it. It started simply. Things weren't where I'd left them. A book left open on a different page. The pen I'd used yesterday, in the fridge. Once, I found my toothbrush in the freezer. Jess explained everything logically, forcing a smile. You're tired, distracted, your mind's elsewhere. But her eyes told a different story. She felt it too. Then the noises began. Scratching sounds like someone dragging fingernails inside the walls. Floorboards creaking quietly, as though someone were cautiously moving, trying not to wake us. I'd wake up from it, sitting upright in bed, mouth dry, staring into the darkness. Jess heard it too. It's an old house, she said softly. It breathes. But I saw how she'd glance into corners when she thought I wasn't watching. I noticed she wouldn't enter the bathroom without turning on the lights first. Soon, every reflection acted strangely. Mirrors, glass doors, my phone screen, even the damp surface of the stove after cleaning. Sometimes the reflections looked slightly aside. Sometimes they smiled, and I didn't. One night, I woke up on the floor. A cup lay next to me, empty. I was wearing a different shirt. The floor was covered in dirty footprints, as if someone had wandered barefoot through the house, out into the yard and then returned. Jess cautiously suggested sleepwalking. Said it happens sometimes. But I'm not sleepwalking. I hear it. I started losing track of time. Moments vanished from my memory. I'd blink, and the evening had already come. I'd step outside, then return with cuts on my hand, unable to recall how they'd happened. Sometimes I felt it inside me, as if I were just a passenger, watching from deep within, while something else tested my body. I saw my shadow on the kitchen wall, refusing to mimic me, standing motionless, arms hanging down, as I moved around. Once, I blinked, and it didn't blink back, just stood there watching me. Then I saw it apart from myself. It was around 3 in the morning. I woke, not from a sound, but from silence, a thick, unnatural quiet. The kind that presses down on you, letting you know you're not alone. I stepped into the hallway. The room was bathed softly by the bedroom nightlight. I stood frozen in the doorway, and I saw it. Jess was sleeping, calmly, deeply, and beside her stood the shadow. Not on the wall, not on the floor. It stood right next to her, suspended in midair, like a figure carved out of pure darkness. I froze. My breath caught. The shadow slowly stretched out its arms. Thin, unnaturally elongated, twisted as though it had been broken and poorly reassembled. It took me a second to realize it was reaching for Jess. And then I screamed, "Don't touch her!" I lunged into the bedroom, stumbled over the threshold, crashed onto the bed, pulling off the covers, grabbing Jess by the shoulders. She woke screaming, and in that instant, she saw me. Wet, pale, face distorted with terror, standing by her bed. She didn't say a word. She just stared, her eyes wide with fear. Fear of me. I tried to explain, but my tongue felt thick, useless. She trembled, drawing back into the corner of the bed, knees pressed tightly to her chest. I stood there, lost. In the morning, she packed her things. She said nothing, just left, avoiding my eyes. I didn't call after her, didn't try to stop her. I remained, alone, with it. And now, I barely sleep. I hear it behind me, feel it standing close, just barely touching the back of my neck. Sometimes, I think I'm no longer myself. That in the mirror, it's her, that I've become just an empty shell. And next time, if she reaches out to someone else, I won't stop her. I'll help her. Night came again, far too quickly. Again, I feared blinking. I sat in the center of the room, surrounded by lamps, as if trapped inside a besieged fortress. Light flooded from every direction, but it offered no warmth, no safety. It only made it clearer how the shadow thickened around the edges. It had long since stopped being flat. Now it breathed. I heard it, a muffled, raspy breathing, like someone in a darkened room inhaling the darkness and exhaling it directly into my ears. I hadn't moved for hours. I was sure that if I left the center of my circle of light, I would never return. Then the lights flickered. Once, twice. I froze. Something stirred in the hallway. Not footsteps, not creaking. The scraping of fingernails on the floor. Slowly, stealthily, like someone crawling, clawing their way forward, gripping at the floorboards. I tried to stand, but my body wouldn't obey. It seemed to know. Moving meant being noticed. The sound stopped. Silence hung in the air. Then, a click. The ceiling lamp went out. Only the dim desk lamp remained, barely a meter away. The shadow moved, right in front of me. It crawled across the floor, flowing like spilled ink. Slow, deliberate. Its fingers, long, stretching unnaturally, inhuman. And then it rose, without sudden movements, like mist. First the legs, then the spine straightened, and finally the head lifted until it was level with mine. I saw its face. It was mine. Almost. But the skin was ashen, charred, black-grey, cracked as if burned. The eyes, empty pits, not simply black, but absorbing the light around them. "You're tired," it said softly. The voice was quiet, as if coming from inside my own skull. "I can breathe for you." Its fingers brushed against my face, and I realized I'd been holding my breath all along. I inhaled, and with that breath, something foreign entered me. Cold, clammy, like moisture gathering inside my lungs. "Give me a little, just a bit." It leaned closer. I smelled it. Cold, like the stale air of a cellar filled with dead things. "I have lived in you before." The words pierced through my skin. And then, the lights went out completely. I screamed, but no sound came. Only the sensation of darkness filling my throat, drowning my vocal cords. The shadow enveloped me. It didn't attack. It embraced, slowly, patiently, the way an ocean swallows a drowning man. I felt fingers sliding beneath my skin, not breaking it, passing through it. I felt myself being pulled out, not my soul, but my very essence, that which makes you who you are. "I promise, you won't feel any pain." And I believed those words, because I no longer felt anything. No body, no hands, no fear, only endless cold. And then, my eyes opened. I stood at the window. Morning, sunlight streaming. I was smiling, but it wasn't me. Somewhere deep within, trapped in the cold darkness, I screamed silently. Yet the body lived. It moved. And the shadow behind moved perfectly in sync. Only occasionally, lagging slightly behind, trying out its new life.